Hi folks, and welcome to part 2. Before I get stuck into this episode, I just want to let you know that if you've got any questions on things that I've covered, or things that you want to see me go through in a future video, let me know in the comments section. One thing that I've already been asked is if I can go through in more detail about USB removable media, and I'll do that in part 3. That's quite a bit of a subject, but that's for the next video. In this video, what I want to cover is a few more file operations, and then cover what are perhaps the two most common things that people use their computers for: browsing the internet and Office software. Well, you could say games, but yeah, that's later. So, file operations. There's a few extra things that you need to know. And one of them is that Linux is case sensitive. Now, while Windows will remember the case that you've used in a file name, upper and lower letters, it doesn't treat them as different files. I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to create 4 documents. Test this with 2 capital T's. Test this all in small case. Another one, test this with only the first one capitalized. And then another one, test this with all capitals. And you can see we've got 4 separate files here. In Windows, if you tried this, on the second file it would say no, there's already one existing with this name, and it wouldn't let you create it, because although it remembers the case that you've used, it treats it as the same file. Whereas Linux is totally case sensitive, and it's, even though they are the same letters, test this, with different capitalizations, it's treating them as different files. If I create another copy of test this, then because it's already got to test this with the 2 T's capitalized, it will complain. And there you go, couldn't be renamed, already in use. So that's one thing to remember. It could cause a few issues if you take advantage of this and you have the same file name in different case, and then you copy it to a Windows file system. You may have some unexpected results. Be warned. So that's one of them. One of the other things that we went through in the previous video was the delete option, and that you have the option to move to the rubbish bin. Now, there is, in the preferences, up to you how you want to do this, but in the preferences there should be an option in the behavior to remove the delete command, so that when you next try and delete them, the delete isn't there and you've only got the rubbish bin. It depends on how you want to play it, really, but that is an option that's there for you. I'm going to turn it back on in my case, because that's how I roll. I really would encourage you to spend your time going through some of these preferences, so you can see the options that you've got, and have a bit of a play around. I mean, that's one reason why I encourage people to use a second-hand machine or an old machine which they're not using anymore, to just install Linux on it and have a play and get used to it, because that's pretty much one of the most important things on the learning curve, learning where things are and what options you've got. So we're just going to do that, and we're going to delete these. Right. One of the other things that we went through was file operation queuing, or at least I showed you where the option was. File operation queuing is on by default in Mint at the moment, and in some cases it can help you. if you happen to be like me, typically copying files from different locations, like from the network to the hard disk on the machine, or from the hard disk to a USB stick, then operation queuing can get in the way. But there are times when operation queuing can actually help you. Let's say, for example, you've got an external hard drive which is a physical hard disk, so there are actual heads moving around. Writing one stream of files in order would actually help the data when it's written to the hard disk, in that it's all in line, it's all contiguous, there's no breaks. Whereas if you're doing multiple operations, then it's trying to juggle its way around, and you end up with a bit of data all over the place, and it's not very helpful. So there are times when operation queuing will actually help you. It doesn't matter that much for flash media, or network operations, but it can have a benefit depending on what you're doing. Obviously, if you're cautious enough to be only writing one batch of files to an external hard drive at the time, then operation queuing doesn't really matter. But it's useful to know these things and have a think about them. Home directory encryption. I think I touched on the subject in the last video, and there's a bit of thought about that. It might be useful on laptops that you take outside the house, that sort of thing, but I don't find it very useful myself. Encryption uses a bit of processing power to encrypt and decrypt as the files come on and off the hard disk, and if something goes wrong with the operating system, then you've got to go to a bit of effort to get the encrypted files off again. I've never done it, to be honest. I've never really encrypted my home directories. Most of the stuff is actually stored on the servers, so hey ho. But that's something for you to have a think about. And if I was going to use encryption on the home directory on my laptops that I take away from the house, I'd probably be keeping a backup in the house anyway, which would save having to go through all the fuss of recovering an encrypted directory. Yeah, I suppose it's something that I should do for practice, just to have done it, if you know what I mean. But yeah, that may happen in time. Hidden folders, hidden files and folders. I'm going to create a document. I'm going to call it test this, but I've put a full stop at the start of it. So there's a full stop right at the start of this file name, and if I refresh this folder, it's gone. If we go up to view, you have show hidden files, and as you can see, even on a fresh installation like this, there's a fair few dotted files in there, and there is the .testdis that we just created, and I'm just about to delete. So in Linux, if a file has a full stop at the start of it, it's deemed to be a hidden file. One of the important hidden files, or hidden folders really, that you might want to be aware of is .fonts. If you have custom fonts, or any fonts that you like which don't come with the operating system, you can create the .fonts directory in your home directory yourself, and then drop your TrueType fonts in there, and then the system should pick up on them. There is a global fonts directory, but most people is just one person using the machine, so if you put it in your own home directory, it doesn't matter that nobody else can see them because you're the only person using the machine. So putting a .fonts directory in your home directory and dropping your fonts in there is probably a good thing. It's easy than having to mess around trying to get files into system areas. Yeah. Now, one thing about all these .files is that they typically contain data, settings. It used to be quite some time ago that when you started an application and you changed settings and then you closed the application needed somewhere to store those settings that you changed, or indeed any settings. So it had what was called an initialization file, an ini file, and the more software you had loaded, each would need its ini files, and indeed the operating system itself would need ini files because of the settings in the operating system. And this got a bit much. Microsoft then invented the registry. So rather than storing it, well, it was a database basically, that's what the registry is, and rather than store things in an ini file, things could be stored in the registry. That does bring some problems in itself, in that if the registry was ever corrupted, because it also keeps settings for the operating system, then it's pretty much good night to the operating system. Yeah. So the registry has its pluses and minuses. Linux still keeps using ini files, and the use of some of these have changed over time. Like you can see .config and .local, but you can also see .mozilla. So some applications will start up their own hidden folders in your home directory, and others will go into the .config and .local folders. So here we typically have the configuration files. If we go in for something like Nemo, yeah, here's one of the files, and if we open it, you can see that it's got all these settings and what they were set to, and it will read this when it starts up, and it will know where it was. So here you can see there's various folders for that various things. HexChat is a program, LibreOffice. You've got its sections in there, and all sorts of bits and pieces. .themes. They're all stored, well, .themes and a few others are like .fonts. There are central themes, and then you can add your own in the folders in your home directory. And indeed, there are ones for your profile, your desktop user profile, and other bits and pieces like that. So that's where a lot of this data is stored. It's stored under ini files, and here we have local, share, and again you can see there's some various bits in here. Keyrings is interesting. We'll come back to that in a bit. Well, indeed, we'll deal with it now. Keyring. Passwords and keys is where it is in the menu structure, and the collection is empty. So here we have passwords, login, keyring is locked, unlocked. So there we have a password or secret set for Chromium web browser. I've already installed it. I've also done the drivers thing, so we are now running off the NVIDIA drivers for the screen, so hopefully no more glitches. I hope. And also I also installed the patches, so the update manager is saying we're up to date. Normally with the updates it doesn't nag you too much, and if you've updated, if you run an update, typically you don't have to reboot, unless you can see something for the Linux kernel in there. If you can see Linux kernel, then you're probably going to have to reboot after that one, but typically with a lot of the updates you don't have to. Indeed, Linux kernel you don't have to update. It'll just take effect when you next reboot the machine. Anyway, so here we have passwords and keys, and I had to unlock it with my password in order to get in, and various keys and certificates are in there. So there is a password and key store there. So applications can store passwords in there rather than doing it inside themselves. You don't have to set it up if you don't want to. It's typically when you run Chrome, then it's going to say, yeah, I want to access your your password database. Yeah, we'll come on to that. So, browsers. The Firefox web browser is pretty much the go-to browser that comes with things. And the other one you can use is Chromium. Obviously, Safari is Apple only, and in terms of Internet Explorer and Edge, they're Microsoft. You're not going to find either of those on Linux. But Firefox and Chromium you should do. Now, under Administration Software Manager, I think it's under this one, you can get Chromium. So in the search we'll say Chromium, and up will come the list. This is the Chromium web browser. I'm sure I installed that. Oh yeah, Chromium web browser, the web browser from Chromium project. I've installed that one. So where's that one? I think we'll remove that one and we'll install the other one. Right. Right. That's going to take a short time to install, but anyway, we'll end up with Chromium and Firefox. Now typically you'll find that personally I use Firefox for most of my browsing, and I have some extra things installed which I'll show you in a moment. And you also have Microsoft had Internet Explorer, which is their own engine, but eventually they gave up, and when they created Edge, Edge is based on Chromium. So you can pretty much bet that a lot of the Microsoft Office 365 stuff, if you're using that, will work under Chromium. So let's launch this, and here we have Chromium. Let's make sure that this is what I think it is about Chromium. Yep. Apps Linux Mint Community about Chromium. Version official build for Linux Mint. Right. So we'll come back to Chromium in a moment. But there's the software manager. That's how you find Chromium and install it. Browsers. Interesting subject. Now what I'm going to do is search for browser war wiki. Now this is a bit of history. There are two browser wars. In the 1990s, most people were using Netscape Navigator in order to browse the internet. Microsoft decided to create Internet Explorer, and so the war began. Microsoft wanted dominance. So why would Microsoft want dominance? Well, one of the things that happens is you trust your web browser to go to a website on your behalf, bring back the information and display to you exactly what was given back. One of the things which has been looked into in a number of cases is actual alteration of that data that comes back. There were various things that could be done. For example, as you see on this page, you have various links which are clickable, and those are defined by as clickable, and where they go is defined by Wikipedia's servers in the information they've passed back. And if the browser wanted to start messing around with advertising, then the browser could alter this code, find a link that matches something that it wants to advertise, like bread for example, and then turn the word bread into a clickable link on its own and shove you off to another destination. That is one of the things that could have happened if Microsoft had won the browser wars. There's another browser wars, and pretty much Chromium has won it by all accounts. Now, there I'm pretty sure that there was a few other things that I was going to say on web browsers, the war, and the differences. Yeah. One of the things that Microsoft did with Internet Explorer to try and win the war was to give extra features. Now, hypertext markup language is a standard. I'm just going to open this in here for you. It's a markup language. It's a standard with the World Wide Web Consortium recommendation. You know that there are various. If you're doing it, you've got to keep to a standard, and the standard is the markup language. And the markup language is well, a better way to do it is just view page source. This is markup language. This describes to the browser how to paint the page that you're seeing. So all that code defines how this page will look. Hence it's called a markup language. And what Internet Explorer did was it added extra features which were above standard, outside the standards. So while Netscape Navigator maintained the standards, Internet Explorer added a few things that and encouraged web designers to use them. So of course, if web designers used those extras, they'd work in Internet Explorer, but they wouldn't work in Netscape Navigator because they were extra features. And so that's one way to try and get people to, oh, it's not working under this browser, oh, I might as well use Internet Explorer then. And that's typically one of the things that happened. The whole thing is covered in quite good detail here. But now you've pretty much got the new browser wars and what's going on. And here you can pretty much see what's happening. You have Chromium came in about just more than a decade ago, and it's got a considerable amount of share. There's Apple's Safari, steadily grown, but you know. You also have Internet Explorer, which is dying a death. Where's Edge? Edge might be counted in Chrome. There's Firefox, still holding up, and then you've got a few others like Opera and Android. And UC Browser. What is UC Browser? I don't know. But anyway, that's pretty much what's going on. Now, at the start of the Netscape Navigator's decline, Netscape open sourced their browser code and later entrusted it to the newly formed non-profit Mozilla Foundation. Mozilla. Firefox. So when you're using Firefox, you're basically you've basically got a link to Netscape Navigator there. Hey ho, interesting. But pretty much that's one of the things that's happening. So you've got the new browser wars. It's quite an interesting piece of history, but it explains why there is such a war on to get you to use a specific browser. because once you're using a specific browser, the manufacturer who is controlling, whoever wrote your browser is controlling your window on the world, and you're trusting it to give the information honestly. But there was another thing that's happened, which is telemetry, reporting back data and information on your computer usage. Now, to some people that seems fine. You know, if the data on what you're doing is allowing adverts, which pays for the free services you're using on the internet, then some people are fine with that. Other people, not so much. And there is one other thing. The browser wars is not over yet. It's still running. This one broke a few months ago. There's a certain extension. This actually isn't it. This is Microsoft forcibly opening some sites in Edge instead of Internet Explorer, but there was another one that broke. Right. Yeah. Some people do not like Edge. They don't like Microsoft Edge, so they try and deflect away from it, trying to use, and you know, be it Chrome, Firefox, or whatever, just don't want to use Edge. So even despite setting Edge, despite using tools like Edge Deflector and other things and setting their default browser, there are certain things that Windows 11, and I'm not sure if it's happening on Windows 10, will force Edge to open. It will force you to use Edge for certain links. Yeah. It tried it. Edge Deflector worked around it by intercepting Edge protocol links, but the app no longer works on the latest insider builds of Windows 11. You can't change the default protocol's association through registry changes, OEM partner customizations, modifications to the Microsoft Edge package, interference with openwith.exe, or any other hackish workarounds, explained the developer of Edge Deflector. So it's another, the browser wars are still going, pretty much, and yeah. Whether or not Microsoft is going to face any more antitrust for this, like they did with the Internet Explorer thing, which took years and they lost, I don't know. Sorry. But yeah, they've even gone as far as, if you set your default browser and you use whatever you like, certain things Windows will just open in Edge anyway, regardless. Yeah, not very user friendly. So Firefox is pretty much still the most popular of the alternative browsers. There's always discussions about Google's Chrome and the telemetry and the data it's sending back. Microsoft, what they're sending back. Yeah. If it matters to you, it matters. So here's a few things that I've actually installed. And if you go to Tools in Firefox, well, for a start, this bar isn't here. You have to right click on a section and tick the menu bar. Then you'll get the menu bar, which makes it easier to go to sections like add-ons and themes. Now, once you've gone into here, you can add on extensions and you can search the extensions for the various bits and pieces and install them or not, as you wish. Most of them require little little operation. One of them gets quite heavy. Under Firefox you'll find the Facebook container if you search it and add it, and what that tries to do is isolate Facebook if you're using Facebook and stops it from leeching any other information from any other tabs you've got open. So that's that one. If you don't use Facebook, what the hey. There are other things that still use Facebook for authentication even though you're not actually using Facebook itself. Yeah. Fluff busting purity. Now that cleans up Facebook by trying to cut down the junk and the adverts and the other things that pop up in the feed. I use it, but it is a game of cat and mouse. Facebook don't like fluff busting purity, and actually fbpurity.com, I'll show you. That's fluff busting purity, and this will work on Firefox on Windows as well, by the way. So you've got download and install fbpurity, and then it'll know what you are and add it. Now the battle is so bad that if I was to take that URL and paste it to someone in Facebook's chat, even a private chat between me and someone else within Facebook Messenger, it's blocked. That URL is blocked. Every time that I have tried to pass that URL, pass Facebook fluff busting purity to a friend, Facebook has said this is a disallowed URL, and it has stopped me from actually sending it in chat. That's how bad it is. That's how bad Facebook don't like it. Privacy Badger and uBlock Origin, they attempt to block trackers. Now, websites don't always just pull back information from themselves, and I'll show you this. Noscript is another one that I've added. Privacy Badger and uBlock Origin attempt to block trackers automatically without much interference, but Noscript requires a bit of usage. Now you can see them all up here on the right. There is Facebook Container, that's Privacy Badger, uBlock Origin, fluff busting purity, and Noscript. Like if we go to bbc.co.uk, you can see here that a few things have popped up. Now, uBlock Origin, because I've used the more option or less, that's what you normally get, but I've asked for more a few times, and eventually you get this. And this is pretty much where it's pulling information from. So bbc.co.uk is pulling information from www.bbc.co.uk, okay, fair enough, bbci.co.uk, which I think is the source for iPlayer within BBC. But there's this, it's pulling information from this one, acclamiedge.net, never heard of it, and also Europe West BBC Orgtan cloudfunctions.net, no clue, and this one's labelled in red. So even though you go to one website, that's not to say that it can't pull information or send information to other websites, other domains, and that's how some tracking happens, by using the involvement of other domains, and then central databases can track where you were around the web because others have already referenced the same one, and so an image builds up. So what sorry, what Noscript does is it blocks things. So as you can see, we've got these websites at the moment. They're on default, which means it doesn't allow them to execute scripts. So we've got temporarily trust, we've got trust, we've got untrusted, isn't it? Definitely block them. Or you've got custom. I never really use the custom action, to be honest, but we're going to temporarily trust these two, because that's the site we're looking at, and bbci.co.uk, you know, that's probably got the media, so we'll temporarily trust those. And you can see there's been a change. Two others have popped up, chartbeat.com and optimizely.com. Why does it need to talk to those websites? So I could actually untrust those, and still it functions. It's fine. If I try and play a video, oh, that's audio sounds, but it will play. Oh, I need to sign in to access that. Let's try and find something that's got video on it. Doesn't look like there is easily. Welcome to the BBC News. There we are, I think. Here we go, that's video content, and that is running despite having blocked them. So you can see it's pulling the information from there. There's another one, biddy.net.uk, I don't know, and akamized.net is still there. And now uBlock Origin is blocking from a lot more other places. So this is where that website is actually pulling information from and talking with in other places. So typically you can let more or less, yeah, blocked on this page 8%, 5%. It's connected to 7 out of 10 domains that it tried, and it's blocked 7% since install. If you get trouble, you can disable uBlock Origin on a site, just to make things easier if you need to. These aren't too bad. It's the Noscript that needs quite a bit of intervention on your behalf, because by default everything will be default trusted, and you will have to, when things start to go wrong or don't work, you'll have to come in here to alter things. The others aren't too bad, but yeah, using Noscript, it's a pretty good protection, I find, but it takes a bit to use it. So that's pretty much Firefox. There are a couple of other things which you can do, and I will show you briefly. And that is that Firefox can get memory hungry. And yeah, I just put in that's the wrong USB stick. Get the right one. That's better. Now you can run through this in your own time if you like, and also you can, what's up on screen now, if you freeze frame, you'll be able to and take a screenshot of this instruction and follow it yourself if you wish. But basically, after you've started Firefox, you type about:config in the address bar, and that will get you a warning, and then you're into the settings. There are two key settings that you want. One is browser.cache.memory.capacity. It's a number. It's normally -1, which basically means no limit, use as much memory as you like. I've taken it to 1024K, which is a megabyte, so I've said okay, you can only use a megabyte of memory for caching. And there's another one which is browser cache disk capacity. That one is normally a high number, and again I've knocked that down to 1024, and to edit it you can just press the button and then hit the tick when you're done. and when you restart Firefox, that should start again with those preferences, and it shouldn't take as much memory as it likes. It should ramp itself back a bit. You can turn it off by setting some other options, and yeah, that's about that. That should help you out with Firefox. So Firefox, and typically I do for most of my browsing, because I've also got the protection of Noscript. Chromium, which we've installed, also has some plugins, and hopefully we should be able to get in here somewhere. Settings, probably going to have to find it. Oh, extensions. Extensions on the left hand side, in the Chrome Web Store. Customize, off, turn everything off. Right, so we have extensions. Now, the same extensions that I use for Firefox, I normally use for Chrome as well, with a few exceptions. Privacy Badger, that's there, so you can add that. Also, uBlock Origin. I thought that uBlock Origin was there. Oh, of course they're in the. They're not in there. They're in the store. Developer mode. Extension apps. Oh, where did it go? Let's just remove that again. Or is it down here? Open Chrome Web Store. That's where it is. It's a real problem finding stuff. So here we go. uBlock Origin. There's uBlock Origin. So I'll add that. No, we won't turn on sync. What else do we have? Facebook container doesn't exist, but we can get fluff busting purity. So we just go to fluffbustingfbpurity.com, download and install it. It knows it's Chrome. So that's there. And the last one is Noscript. So we add that, and that's there. To get your extensions on your computers, turn on sync. No thanks. Go away. I hate the nagging. Now they are actually under this sort of jigsaw piece. But the other thing you can do is actually pin them, and they will appear up there. And then when you visit a website, bbc.co.uk, you can start to see the numbers come up. And you can see Noscript is blocked 5, 6. It's just showing those. Privacy Badgers blocked a few. That's blocked another few. Because I went directly to the news section rather than bbc.co.uk itself. So, yeah, you can help protect yourself with this. I don't know where the settings are in Chromium to actually control the amount of cache it uses, but to be honest I haven't had that much of an issue with Chromium actually crashing on me using too much. So there are the extensions that we use, and if you have problems with them you can just disable them. And Noscript is the one which takes a bit of effort to get used to. and that is the one which you may end up just turning off after having had enough of it. So there are your browsers. Firefox is used for most of my browsing. Anything that doesn't work in Firefox I use in Chrome, and also I find that Chrome is the best one to actually use Microsoft Office 365, so I can get hold of Teams, Outlook, all the stuff that I use for work I can use in Chrome on Linux. Now, Office applications. There's quite a bit of history with Office applications, and again in the 90s there was another battle, and it was against Microsoft's Office Suite and an Office Suite which actually changed hands a few times. And from the customer's perspective, there was the biggest problem was that everything was stored in a proprietary format. So if you'd spent a few years using Office Suite A to make all your documents, if you thought, oh, actually I want to use Office Suite B now, I find that's got more features for me, then you try and open your documents and it can't. They're proprietary. You're stuck with Office Suite A. So various things happened with that, and you have the Open Document Foundation, and there's the home of the Open Document Foundation. Basically, the main work of this is that it's an independent, self-governing, meritocratic entity created by a large group of free software advocates in the form of a charitable foundation under German law. Yeah, so it has some legal clout to its structure. And basically what it seeks to do is, by having an open standard for how documents are stored, it breaks the link between the documents and the applications. So if you want to change to another suite, you can, and it'll just use the documents because it's all in a common open document format. Now I think we talked previously about LibreOffice and how it came into existence, how it was OpenOffice, being sheltered by Sun Microsystems. Then Sun Microsystems got bought out by Oracle, and OpenOffice basically became, well, that became an issue for the open source community, so they forked OpenOffice to become LibreOffice. OpenOffice has fallen a bit by the wayside. LibreOffice is, as it said, it's said that it's the most up-to-date and feature-rich open Office suite. There are a few others around, but so LibreOffice is probably the one to go for. And one of the most important things is that it's multi-platform. So if you don't want to use Microsoft Office, then you can download LibreOffice to your Windows machine if you want to, and use it there. Now, it's horses for courses, pretty much. When you look at the benefits of something like Microsoft Office 365 or Google, whatever they call it, Google Docs, Google Work, I don't know. It's got advantages. You've got storage in the cloud, yeah. Depending on how much you fork out, depending on how much you get. I think Office 365 at the moment is about £60 for a basic home user license for a year, and I think it comes with 2 terabytes or 1 terabyte, which is quite a bit, is quite a chunk. And I think there is a step below that but you know, you don't get very much storage, 30 gig I think. Google's offerings are roughly the same, I'd say, but personally I've had problems with Google's Office suite, especially its spelling. So cloud storage, the applications are running in the cloud. Some people can find that a bonus because they're not there, you know, they can use their phone and still access their data or whatever. They can access their data across devices. Great. But it's not the total solution. There are risks, pretty much. One of the risks is that your data, even in the cloud, could be lost. It's rare, but it's happened. Also, the services have gone down. That's far more common, and you can't access anything because Microsoft or Google or someone, or Azure, Amazon, sorry, have gone down, and that's knackered everything, so nobody can get to anything. That's happened a few times. And there is no backup in the cloud. I mean, if you've got a commercial account, then yes, you can purchase backup facilities. But for the average consumer, there's typically no backup option available. So if the cloud service has a problem and loses your data, it's gone. That, I have to admit, is pretty rare, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, that one is 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. There are other problems that are happening. Because it's on somebody else's servers, things change. The prices can change, and do, and have. The amount of free storage you get can and has changed. And you can suddenly find yourself with a warning that you're now over the new limit and you've got to get some of your files off, or you'll just lose them, or whatever. You know, it's not present to suddenly be broadsided with that kind of warning and have to do something about it. There is a bit of tie-in in the cloud, not so much with Microsoft, but Google Docs have their own format, and if you want to get your files down from there to use in another system, you've got to export them in a different format, typically Office format or something. So yeah, it's not easy. But if you want to store your files locally, you can do, and use a free Office system called LibreOffice. Now, you will find yourself, like anything, up against a learning curve. And yeah, you have the main things, which are Writer and Calc and Impress. The others, Math, Draw. Draw is also something else. Database. Draw is, what is it? I've forgotten the name of it. But here, we'll come to it in a minute. We'll start off with the Writer. As with anything, these have pretty much most of the features. The problem is learning where to find them. That's your problem. It's the learning curve. But typically once you've done it for one platform, you can go to another platform and still the same. Format page style is one of the common ones, where you'll find if you want to change to landscape or alter the margins. There's a few other things in here as well. Sorry, it's a bit late at night. You've got all the usual justification, bullet list, numbered list, indent, line spacing, paragraph spacing, that sort of thing. You've got your fonts and all the rest of it, and all the various things you can use, bold, underline, size, you know. You've even got quick tables. So you can insert a quick table if you want, and when a table is active you've got another bar down the bottom for your table control. So it's pretty much all there. It's a matter of knowing where to find the options. And with many other things you can do for a search for YouTube, LibreOffice Writer tutorial, and you can easily find beginners tutorials on YouTube, or getting started with the LibreOffice Writer and all the other stuff like that. So it does what it says on the tin. I was hoping that my friend would send me a number of documents from Microsoft Office to sort of stretch the conversion side of this to see how they come out. But I think he got the wrong end of the stick from what I was telling him. But yeah, he might send some more, and we may deal with them in the next video. We'll see how things go. But you've pretty much got it all. Formatting marks, you can turn the formatting marks on and off so you can see what's going on. You know, all these features you'll find, insert pictures and all the rest of it. Spelling, you've got a number of different languages. We currently have, what languages here? For selection, English UK is in there, and you can get other dictionaries as well, or you can actually make your own dictionary. And there is language, more dictionaries online. Now I believe that Klingon is going to be supported in the next update. So you've got loads of dictionaries. Belarusian, Bosnian, Czech. There's still a long way to go with a lot of these dictionaries, I think. Oh, didn't click on page 2. Welsh isn't in there, for example. You got Dutch, Espanol, German, and all the rest of it. They're all there, so you can get more. And it's just a case of getting used to it and finding where all the options are, because you can pretty much do everything. I mean, you've got customized toolbar options, multiple toolbars, and you know there's stuff in the toolbar which isn't which is hidden. Just click it and it'll come out. You've got to load more commands on the left which you can drag in to your toolbar. So you've got options there, quite a bit of power. You got tables, forms, all the usual stuff, tools, styles, format, you know, all the usual stuff that you would expect to find in a decent word processor. And you've also got another toolbar on the right, so it's called your sidebar. There is a side ruler if you choose to enable it. Rulers, grids and helplines, you've got all that stuff, but yeah. The other thing is with Calc. Now with Calc, it can't use macros, and the reason for that is I believe that Microsoft Office macros are written in Virtual Basic, and that's not in Linux. So they're written in Python. I think it's Python it uses. I've never had real call to use them, to be perfectly honest, but there are also differences in some of the formatting. Like if I put that there, if I put a load of numbers, and then in this one I say to sum those columns, like if this was, I think if this was Excel, that would be D4 ... D13. Yeah? There'd be a double dot between those. Have I got zoom active? Yes, I've got zoom active. So you can see that, and that won't work. But what will work, drat, I've got to get in there, equals sum D4 to D13 is a colon, and that is the notation for Calc, and there you have the answer. So the notation is different in Calc to how it is in Excel, but the functions are there. Again, it's all down to the learning curve of learning how to do it. you've got a lot of the mathematical functions and all the rest of it. The ability to reference, where are we? View, format, styles, data. Oh yeah, you've got pivot tables, all the rest of it. You've got XML sources, data providers. You can link to external data sheets even. Internal sheet from file. It's pretty much there. Again, it's a case of looking up for the YouTube libraries for help and how-tos and to get you going. And there is LibreOffice Help, which is, I don't think I've got that. Oh yeah, there it is. So there is help in there for you, and list of functions by category: database, date and time, financial. Let's try financial. So you can see various financial functions, how to use them, what the syntax is, and yeah, discount as a percentage. You know, all those functions are there for you to use. There we go. Let's have a look at what else we've got. Yeah, like I was saying, my friend didn't quite get the gist of what I was asking for, so he sent a PowerPoint file with very basic stuff that he wrote in Microsoft PowerPoint, and it has opened up in Impress, and indeed there you go, and you've got all sorts of things. So there's transparency there, for example. Do I have a slider bar? No, I don't. But I can just add the transparency. You can see it going. You know, you've got all the usual stuff that you'll find: shadow, area, paragraph, character. All the stuff that you've got that you can find are all in there. And again, tutorials for Impress. You know, you'll find YouTube tutorials that are going to be easy to use. And yeah, it's all down to the learning curve. The last thing I'll show you in Office is Draw. Now, Draw isn't quite Paint. Paint, you've got freehand, but under Draw you've got various shapes that you can use, and you have things like line, area, color, fill. You can't see some of this stuff, but you have line continuous, you have width. That'll control your outside width, so you've got options there. You've got arrows, and again you can control the width, you can control the rotation. You have various lines that you can do, and let's change the width of that so you can see that better as I move it around and transform it. Yeah, and again, rotation, you can actually rotate that as well, so that's pretty good. You have that with, oh no, that's boom, boom. There's all sorts you can do. Is that the one? Freeform, that's a freeform line filled, so I can go all over the place with a freeform line filled and get some pretty good results. You know, it's pretty impressive. Yeah, and you can also, is that distort? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's, I've distorted the wrong one, have I? Yeah, and you've also got speech bubbles into which you can put text. Yeah, and obviously you've got the colours and all the rest of that in there as well that you can deal with. You don't have to stick with that. You can colour green. You know, it's not quite Paint, it's a different application, but you know, I don't think it's got the freehand that I'd normally find myself using. Well, you've got fill colour. That's interesting. How's that going to behave? It isn't. because I'm not sure how I'm using it yet. No, I don't know how to use it. Yeah, what can I say? The professional version of Paint Shop, Paint Shop. Paint Shop? Is it Paint Shop? Pretty sure it's Paint Shop. Is GIMP in here, so we don't need to save that. So yeah, the long story short with the Office Suite is, I think this is the opening page for it, or recent files, templates. You can see it's all pretty much in the one. You can go into it at the front end for all the selection, and the recent files are all linked, so the recent files are there no matter what you opened it in. No matter which one of these you opened the file in, it should be in the recent documents for you. And there is a thing for remote files as well. Exactly how that's going to work I don't know, and I think I have seen plugins which can plug in to cloud storage for LibreOffice, so those are possibilities, but it's all there pretty much, or the vast majority of it. The only major downside is macros for Excel, or indeed macros in anything, because Visual Basic just doesn't do it. So it is a case of, I mean, this is one of the reasons why I say to people, you know, get a machine that you've just put one side that isn't of use to you anymore, or a laptop that's, you know, it's been running slow and you've replaced it with something else, and just load Linux on it and have a bit of a mess around and learn, because it is a fair old learning curve that you're facing, whereas with the Windows you've had that learning curve over a number of years. And okay, you've had a few jolts every time there's been a new release, but that's the whole thing. You can do with this exactly what you do with Windows. If you have a problem, you go to a search engine and you find it out, or you ask in a forum, because there are plenty of forums. LibreOffice forum. Yep. Forum.openoffice.org or asklibreoffice.org. There you go. English, ask at libreoffice.4 forum. Let's just unprotect that. Let's just allow it in, and that should now give us all the stuff. LibreOffice forum. English, common base, LibreOffice forum. What gives? Ah, there we go. English. So there's the forum there, and you can ask a question in here, register up, and yeah, or you can use the search to search for whatever you're looking for. Issues with Calc formula, September 19, Feb 21, how do I use custom rounding rules? You know, you can search for things and see if somebody's asked the question before and what the solution was. So yeah, you're pretty much not on your own, is what I want to say. It's the learning curve is the same as the learning curve that you had when you started to use Microsoft Office. It's just you got to go through it again. But the help is there. Tutorials are there. There's plenty for you to reference. And at the end of the day, it's up to you what you want. It's up to you what you need. There is obviously the question these days with people being squeezed for money with food and all the rest of it, is what's going to happen to people's subscriptions. We've already had the likes of Netflix having you know, not after the pandemic finished, or the bulk of it, they are not growing the subscribers, and that's now upset the shareholders. You can't keep growing forever, and there are now so many different subscription services in there, you can't be subscribed to them all with all of their unique content. Can't do it. It's just too much money. Yeah, so something's got to give. So having the information helps you make decisions is all I can say on that. And LibreOffice works under Windows. You'll be fine. Firefox works under Windows, and those settings should also work under Firefox for Windows as well. So if you're having problems with Firefox, those settings might also work. And yeah, it's just finding out how to do what you need to do in a different application, and that's pretty much it. So until then, I'll see you on the next one, when we'll be looking into removable USB media and all the rest of that jazz. So until then, ciao for now.